Have you ever felt like your bills were piling up faster than you could pay them? I know I have. In fact, a few months ago, I was faced with a situation where I knew I was not going to be able to make all of my payments on time. I owe a lot of people a lot of money, and I just didn't have it. So I did something that most people are understandably afraid to do. I called each company and I asked for help. And you won't believe what happened. Almost every single company was willing to work with me. Some let me skip payments for several months, others lowered my monthly bills, and some even offered steep discounts. It was a huge relief, and it taught me a valuable lesson. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. So in this video, I'm going to share exactly what I did so that you can get the same kind of relief if you're struggling too. We're also going to go over some other ways that you could slash your monthly expenses and find some breathing room in your budget. And speaking of a budget, that's where this all begins. If you don't have your expenses written down yet, now is the best time to start. It's the absolute cornerstone of taking control of your finances. Once you have everything laid out in front of you, it's a lot easier to see where your money is going and identify areas where you're spending too much and need to cut back. Without a clear picture of where the money is going, it's like trying to navigate in the dark. Now, your budget does not need to be anything fancy or complicated. You don't need an expensive piece of software. I use a simple spreadsheet to track my income and expenses. It's an easy way to get everything written down so that I can see it, but the key is to find a system that works for you and stick with it. Once you have a handle on your budget, you'll be ready to tackle those bills head on. So let's dive into the strategies that I used to negotiate with my creditors and save a ton of money. So the first place I went was to my subscriptions because it honestly feels like everything is a subscription these days, right? It's crazy how these monthly fees can sneak up on you and it all adds up. But here's the good news. Most companies have what's called a loss mitigation sequence. Most companies don't want to lose your business, so they have built-in ways to keep you subscribed. They would rather give you the chance to skip a few payments or maybe even let you stay subscribed at a lower price rather than lose you altogether. But most times you won't see these offers until you try to cancel. This is honestly one of my all-time favorite money-saving hacks. It is amazing just how much you can save just by telling a company that you're thinking about canceling. In some cases, this may require you to pick up a phone or send an email to the company, but in most cases, you can just click a cancel button and be presented with a series of offers. I was able to get immediate relief for my budget by initiating this process with several of my subscriptions. I was even able to retain some of the services for a drastically reduced price and skip some payments on others. It was awesome. Now, once I wrapped up those easy wins, it was time to tackle the elephant in the room, my debt payments. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have a lot of debt, and over the years, I've learned how to prioritize when money is tight. My top priority is always housing. I have been homeless before, and I never, ever want to experience that again, so I always pay for my housing first. After housing comes other essentials like utilities, phone bills, internet, things that I need to work, food, etc. Debt payments, unfortunately, have to take a back seat to all of those things, but that doesn't mean that I just ignore them. Since I knew I wouldn't have a lot left over after the essentials, I took a long, hard, honest look at my budget. I identified the bills that I would most likely default on if I didn't find relief, like the broken vehicle I still owe money on. Once I knew which bills I would have to choose not to pay, I called those companies first, one at a time. I specifically asked about hardship relief programs. Most companies, especially lenders, have these programs to help you avoid defaulting on your payments. They're usually handled by the loss mitigation department. These are the people who are tasked with ensuring that the company gets back the money they're owed, usually by helping you avoid default and stopping you from going into collections. Now, not every company will be willing to work with you in every circumstance, and the programs do vary, but you would be surprised how many creditors are actually open to working with you if you're upfront and honest about your situation and proactive about reaching out. In my case, I started with the lender that holds the loan for our broken vehicle. I spoke openly with their loss mitigation team about my situation and the challenges I was facing. I explained the cause, my plan for recovery, and that it could be months before I could resume those full payments. I also gave them very specific reasons why it was in their best interest to work with me. I mentioned that I had considered selling the vehicle, but I had discovered that it was only worth half of what I owed. This made it clear that it would be a loss for them if they tried to repossess it, so cooperation was in the best interest for both of us. I asked for 6 months of relief, and they gave me 4 months without payments. When negotiating, I found that it always helps to ask for a little bit more than what you need. That way they have room to negotiate you down. Lenders seem to be more cooperative when they have some wiggle room. Ultimately, I followed this same pattern for several of my debts. Some companies reduced my payments, others deferred them. This made a huge difference in my budget, which gave me the chance to recover. In every case, the companies I spoke to were shocked that I called before I missed the first payment. This made them especially cooperative because they could see that I was trying to be a responsible borrower. I highly recommend reaching out at the very first sign of trouble because it helps you build a good rapport and a good working relationship with the companies that you owe. Now, if you're ready to give this a shot, here are some tips that can help you navigate those difficult conversations and increase your chance of success. First, have a reason ready. Most hardship relief programs require you to identify a specific reason why you can't make your payments as promised. You'll need to be able to identify the cause and present a plan to fix it. For example, maybe you had to pay for an expensive car repair, or maybe you missed work because you were sick. You need to know the cause so that you can have a recovery plan. You need to be confident that you'll be able to make those payments in the future. If the lender suspects that you're never going to be able to reliably make those payments, they're less likely to be cooperative with you now. You need to know your budget. Have a clear understanding of your current budget and what you can realistically afford to pay and when. They're going to want to know about this, and you need to have those answers ready so that you can speak confidently about it. Remember, the person you're speaking with is supposed to make sure the company isn't taking a loss, so they prefer concrete answers about what you can afford and when. Do your research ahead of time. Take some time to research the company's policies and any available hardship programs they may offer. If you're working with a secured debt like an auto loan, you can figure out how much the collateral is worth compared to how much you currently owe for it. The more you know, the better prepared you will be for those hard conversations. When you make the call, be polite and professional. You must remain calm and respectful during the entire conversation, even if you're feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, or stressed. I know you're going through a hard time, but you need to make sure that you and the person you're speaking to stay on the same team against the problem. If you end up against each other, you're not going to get what you're asking for. At the same time, you also need to be persistent. You can be polite but firm at the same time. You may need to speak to multiple representatives or escalate your call to a supervisor. It can take a lot of time. Don't make the call until you have enough time to stay on the phone for as long as it takes. And document everything. Write down the date, time, who you were talking to, and what they said. Whenever possible, get the final agreement in writing so that you have evidence of what decisions were made. So those are my top tips for negotiating with people that you owe. It's not always easy, but it was absolutely worth it for me. Remember, it's important to be proactive, be honest, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Now, before we wrap up, let's quickly touch on some other areas where you might be able to find some savings. So, utilities. These are essential, but that doesn't mean you can't lower your costs. If you're struggling, look into programs like the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP, which can help with heating and cooling costs. Also, check with your providers for discounts. Many utility companies offer senior or disability discounts or income-based payment plans like PIP. Weatherization programs can also make your home more energy efficient, saving you money in the long run. And don't forget the basics. Turn off lights when you leave the room, adjust your thermostat, unplug electronics when not in use, and so on. Small changes can really add up. So what about transportation costs? These can really eat into your budget, but there are ways to save. First, you can shop around for car insurance. Rates can vary significantly between providers. And if you're facing hardship, some communities offer free car repair services to help you stay on the road safely. We actually have a list of those on our website, so be sure to check that out. You may also qualify for gas vouchers, discounted bus passes, or other transportation assistance programs that can help you in a pinch. And again, we have a list of all those resources on our website as well. And of course, there are other things you can consider, like carpooling, biking, or walking, if those are viable in your area. Now, unfortunately, there are not a lot of ways to slash housing costs. Homeowners may be able to refinance, find cheaper homeowners insurance, or apply for property tax exemptions to cut down on their mortgages. And it's frustrating, but there just aren't a lot of options out there for renters other than downsizing, looking for a roommate, or attempting to negotiate with your landlord. But none of those options are pleasant or easy. Applying for Section 8 might be able to help in the long term, but it can take years to get, and even once you get it, it can be very hard to find a place that will accept those vouchers. And finally, I know that food is a major stressor right now, but we've talked about how to save money on food quite a lot on this channel. You can visit local food banks, apply for SNAP benefits, shop discounted grocers like Grocery Outlet. You can go gleaning. We have a ton of resources on that on this channel. So if you need help with food, please go check out our other videos for more ways that you can save money on food, and I will see you there.